great old ones that will return, that has returned, just got to have a little time to wake up. Ashe. All right. Okay. Well, we good to go. You might well take that and all too, because I might get my wild and knock it off. So, like we said, here, let's clean up a little bit. Don't need to put that there. Okay. Yeah, just dump all that in the trash. Like we said, we deal with a little bit of hard copy right offhand. First of all, I need to pass these out. Go upstairs and look inside of my bag. You know, the brown bag, and get them Atlanta Hawks tickets. It's a stack of them. You'll see what I'm talking about in a few minutes. And by the time you come back, I'll be ready for them. First of all, we rode around after Christmas. First of all, this is part 2 of part 1 last night, where we had to deal with things that hadn't been unearthed for years and other parts of the mythology that people tend not to actually pay focus to, for the simple fact that we're so stuck in cultural dividers and all. So if it doesn't have an African overtone, we don't think it's ours. But the fact of the matter is, we got whole section of mythology in the South Pacific that we haven't uncovered. We got whole sections of mythology in Hawaii, the goddess Pele, that we haven't uncovered. There's a good book called Shapeshifters, I think the name of the book is, I can't think of the name of it right now, and it deals with the mythology of Pele and the whole Hawaiian thing. That's black people, ancient black people. We know that the earth was one landmass before it was shattered and drifted away. So we have them take your Druids, the thing that the white people claim and call the Celtics. You can't have it two ways. You can't be the Druids and the Celtics and all of this type of shit and be in the caves at the same thing. So anytime you hear stuff about the Druids and all that type of stuff, that's us. You see what I'm saying? That's us. So therefore, they are not the native of anything and anywhere. You see what I'm saying? So an originators are nothing and all, because their origin is from the cave. And the thousands of years it took them to evolve, this stuff was already presented to us. We know based on the Afrocentric movement and Renoka Rashidi, other people like Ivan Van Sertima and different people actually showed you the how you doing, sister? Actually showed you the pictures of Africans in early America. You see what I'm saying? So they actually showed you the actual pictures. So excuse me, Africans in early Europe. So at that particular time, we know that the Celtics, the Celtics, and all of that type of stuff is nothing but us. You see, so therefore we got to go and claim all of this as our particular stuff. So now, dealing with this, I mentioned to you the other that the day after Thanksgiving, the day after New Year's, we rode around Atlanta. And all the projects were closed down. That means that they actually literally got rid of all Section 8 people, or people under the government assistance program. They literally got rid of all of those particular people. Now, the key is, they got rid of those people is because, for one thing, we didn't realize that the installation of what is called a Great Society or the welfare program was not talking about an actual program that you get in. Welfare based on the government means a nation of people. So they were not saying that the program was called welfare. They were saying that the people were called welfare. If we understand that we are still 3/5 of a human being and we're not known as United States citizens but as government property, then one section of the property would be welfare. So it's a difference than a person being on welfare than actually saying a certain group of people are called welfare people. So therefore, when they signed to the welfare bill in 1995 to get rid of welfare, They were talking about eliminating that section of people. You see what I'm saying? They were talking about eliminating that section of people other than eliminating welfare. And the actual bill that Bill Clinton signed, it had a little black woman there, the welfare woman and shit, you know. There, we didn't realize that that was a death warrant for all Section 8 people. So the key was they gave people 30 years to get off of government assistance. They said if your ass was on government assistance by 1995, because, you know, it was installed in 1964-65, so 30 years later, if the people that was left on it, so you could either get on it sometime within the 30-year period and get off of it, but the people who would be left on it by 1995, they felt that those people, in their eyes, was degenerate enough that those people would not be a viable people that could go into the year 2000. Now, despite we know that all the things where they had the people shut in and it's basically the government's fault, that ain't the way the government is thinking. Government says, hey, based on the way we deal with things, the people had 30 years to get on and get the fuck off. So those particular ones that were still on it by 1995 and still on it to this day, it just means that they're still cleaning the particular people out. That meant in actuality, those are the people that they feel are not, are expendable, or people that's not deemed fit to go into the year 2000 for what they want to deal with this whole computer age and this whole 9 yards. So the key is this. It's not as bad, it's not as bad up north, but down south, you got groups of people that has a language, especially in Atlanta, it's real bad, where you can't even understand what they say. It's like, it's like a mumbling. They feel that these particular people can't even get service jobs. So that means these people, because of their language, they're saying that these particular people can't even get a job washing dishes. You see. So the only type of job that they can get is they got something called the Burger King Institute, or the Burger King College. And you could go there and you can probably work, and they separate you. They separate you, and so the ones that can't speak a certain adequate amount of English will be, or in this case, language. They don't care if you say IBs and this and that stuff. They're talking about if you can't pronounce certain words, with your phonics ain't hooked up right, you would be the person that's working behind the scenes. See what I'm saying? You would be the person that's working behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying? Other than working in the scene, working around the counter. So basically, they got a group of people that they said is actually obsolete. And based on the government charter and based on the bill that they signed, because you don't know, we always go up and they'll say they sign a bill, and we only look at the front page of the bill, the welfare bill. And you probably know the numbers, but the bills are always super big. So the bill might say to eliminate or eradicate all people in the welfare nation. So therefore, they had a complete clean off, and it's probably just starting up here. But in Atlanta, because that's being the place where they start a lot of this particular stuff, because the CDC is there, and the Center of Disease Control, which is the ones that label these people are being unfit as far as disease and as far as population control, as well as the Population 2000 thing with Jimmy Carter. And your Carter Center is down there, which is also called the Atlanta Project, which started the original projects anyway. So therefore, they have literally cleaned off all of the projects, about 2 million people. Although they started since 1990 to figure out how they was going to actually do it. They actually went ahead, and by 95 it's completely gone now. So I mean, we have whole projects where the buildings are torn down and everything, and those people are gone. And like I said yesterday, we were saying that there's a whole underground Atlanta. If you go down to Atlanta, there's a whole underground. But Atlanta was built on top of another city. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, if there's an underground Atlanta, that means the whole Atlanta is underground. If there's an underground Atlanta downtown, so that means we suspect that they, not only did they put them on trains because there's an underground railroad track, So we suspect that they came up underground, got them from up under the projects, in the projects, from right there probably in the courtyard of the projects, took them underground and put them on trains and shipped them out. And this is how millions of people have disappeared and nobody has no idea what the fuck is going on. You see what I'm saying? What's going on? So that means that in actuality, under this particular clause, is what is actually happening. Now, I should have just told her to bring the bag. Obviously, just tell her to bring my brown bag. Tell her to bring that one and all, because obviously she can't find it, you know. But the reason why this is going on, and I want to show you something. So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find. Just tell her to bring the entire bag. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to find. Just tell her to bring the entire brown bag. The entire brown bag. I want to show you something here. In here. To show you what's actually going on. What we're talking about here is you have the 30s. The 30s and the 90s. Yeah. Yeah, I want to show you this. Now, I want to get a particular picture. You have, I think Sister Delilah, I saw it in here the last time, but I want to show you this. With this whole thing has to come a Messiah that lines up with the whole thing that they're actually dealing with. And that Messiah is Martin Luther King. For white people, are basically what they want black people to follow. Now, let me get into this, because what's happening here is this. And we think that it might have happened far back as the 60s, but we understood that they took over the whole world with this whole Jesus Christ hoax. But they knew basically that the whole Jesus Christ hoax, because the Jesus of the 2,000 years never existed. It was just a plagiarized thing of the god Heru, but the physical man never existed. So when Dr. Ben, they say, well, what about Jesus Christ? And he said, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. There is no historical study of this man ever existing. So the people said, we're a little confused. I thought the Jeremiah said it was Yeshua ben Pandera. Well, a brother named Brother Otim, that is a well-studied brother, that we should have come to Philadelphia one time and speak, said, well, what had happened is that Jeremiah, in looking in his lecture, Historical Jesus, Mythical Christ, in his book, Jeromancy Lectures, in looking back at the time of Jesus, the only person that they could find was a guy named Yeshua ben Pandera, and said he was a revolutionary figure that was crucified by the Roman government. But that was the only person that they could actually find, but it did not necessarily mean that he was the Jesus of the mythical Christ, which the Hebrews and the Africans and even the Muslims knew would come in the last days, Mahdi, Har-Maku, Metatron. But the historical Jesus, mythical Christ, that particular book, but even Dr. Ben said that no, there was no historical person. So the white man said, well, we know it ain't going to be a white person. That's not historically adequate. But it can be a black person that we can paint as the Christ. And that black person was Martin Luther King. And the whole key with the whole Martin Luther King dilemma is for him to make a movement and actually die in the process. And we believe that he, either being an agent or one of the first clones, knew it, because the last tape where he's talking about going to the mountaintop, he knew that that was the last night of his fucking life. If you study the tape, this man knew that he only had either that night to live or no more than a month or two. You see. Or within weeks he would be dead. Including Malcolm X. Said, you know, you're looking at a dead man. Well, he knew that based on the fucking Muslim was going to kick his ass for ratting out. And yeah, Honorable Elijah Muhammad did all those things with the damn women. But they figure like this, you don't need to run to no fucking Mike Wallace. There's a difference. We handle our business family matter. So we're not letting Honorable Elijah off the hook. He did to the women, you see. But you take the message and not the messenger. But the key is, based on Martin Luther King, we know that this is a classical setup where you also have the martyr type of phenomenon kicked in. And as a result, we understand that the whole project was given, they had to give it a parade, they had to give it the birthday, and they had to give it all this stuff. But I should have brought it to put it on the tape. But they got these new paintings in Atlanta, what white people did with Martin Luther King, with the thorns around his head like Jesus, with the Christ thing, that crown around his head, that crown of thorns around his head. And they got these new pictures like that. So what it is huh? They're selling prints of it. Right. So what the deal is they're trying to paint him as the Messiah. So they've already started to make him as equal as Christmas. Because the whole Christ thing, we understand, comes from other ancient mythology. But they say the only real person in modern history that we can account for, that we will say was lined up with the original people that's supposed to rise up in the hills of North America, is the person that we made, and that's Martin Luther King, which coincides more for white people than he does black people. So as a result, they have made him the Christ, and so as a result, this year you've seen something that is more phenomenal than anything. Because if they're still on this apology thing, all of a sudden, what happened was they shut down Wall Street for his birthday. Right. Yeah. Now, wait a damn minute. They don't shut down Wall Street for Washington's birthday, and he's the father of the country. Now, how is it that you go from 10 years ago even debating whether you're going to give this man a holiday, that some niggas had to fight hard to get that done, or either they will set the agenda and make you fight to make you think you're getting it done. But how is it that you can go from 10 years whether the holiday is a debate, or 2 or 3 years ago where you got Denver and other places and Phoenix or whatever fighting not to have this man's birthday, and all of a sudden you're going to go to Wall Street, the financial district that is dealing with money, and you're going to have them shut down on Martin Luther King's birthday? And you think the motherfucking white man is that decent to do that? And they say, oh, and the only thing he does is the government tells him what to do, and he goes out and set the agenda and make black people think that it is a black agenda, and the government caved into the black agenda. So they say, well, Jesse, no, the government decided to shut down on his birthday, and then another thing happened. On his birthday, the Empire State Building put their lights on red, black, and green. The Empire State Building, the Empire State is what it means, which is the head of America. New York City is the head of America. The old empire was Philadelphia. It's New York, the empire. What's his name is just a paperwork place, Washington, D.C. The empire is what? The financial district. Right? Now, you mean to tell me the financial district would shut down and the empire, and their flag would be red, black, and green? Then you'll understand that they are actually Messiah. And then they would take his son and put him the head of SCLC, this whole Christian thing, and this whole Christian thing, and talking about these people are following in the footsteps of the damn dream. Fucking sons. Who the hell even know these motherfuckers? And since when did they come to some black community? You see what I'm saying? So the key here is, what you're dealing with here is, you're dealing with them actually fashioning their own form of the Messiah. Now, we don't know what the white man, he's psychopathic too. So we understand that he does things just in case. He said, well, why not? Why not make this motherfucker a Messiah? You see what I'm saying? It could very well work, because most black people are following him any damn way. You see, so it's very key that you got to understand what's actually going down. Just look at the magnitude of them shutting down Wall Street for a black person. You see what I'm saying? And I'm quite sure they got white people in their race that's done noble things that probably deserve for white people to get shut down, but they didn't shut their shit down. You see what I'm saying? So that ought to let you know something. But even the whole key is he was talking about, I'm going to the mountaintop. That's a form of ascension that he's actually dealing with. So it wouldn't be too far to say that maybe a year or so they might come out with a whole Bible on the whole thing of Martin Luther King and say, hey, this man is the true historical Christ. Right. Because if the Bible said Christ was coming back, they could say, hey, this is the true historical Christ. You see. And he would be a Christ. You know it was. I mean, but look, he was a Christ for doggone white people. He sure wasn't one with us. He was mad. A madman to tell motherfuckers to damn shed blood when they blew up your black daughters in a damn church. And niggas don't fight back. Right there, that makes you the damn punks of the world and not to fight back after they kill your daughters. Can kill your child and you don't do shit. You ain't nothing but a hoe for the rest of your life. And that seal black people that they know that they can have their cooperation with black people forever. So it's very key that you understand that at this particular time on what's actually going down with this whole Martin Luther King thing. The other thing is they say, well, if we get this thing in the West, we might miss the East. So they say, well, what we're going to do is we're going to jump on the bandwagon and we're going to damn rescue the Dalai Lama in Tibet. Because maybe it might come from Tibet. So they got all these white-ass movie stars and all these white people now about damn China and what they did to Tibet. What about South Africa? Well, they covered that part of the world with Mandela. So they're not leaving no stones unturned. But now all of a sudden they say, so we got the doggone north, south, east, west. The north, hell, that's this little boy Philip or whatever the name is that they got the mama out of the way with trying to fuck a black man, Diana. Yeah. So that's supposed to be the new king of the north. The west, Martin Luther King. You see what I'm saying? The south, if you want to talk about longitude and latitude, that would be Mandela. And the east would be the Dalai Lama. So they would cover all portions of the globe and get new people to act as this other than the Pope, you know what I'm saying, some sheikh or some other religious figure of the old cycle. But this is the way they do things ritualistically. So now they own the bandwagon, this Dalai Lama. I know he ain't got no juice. They asked this fool on TV, is the world getting better? And he said, yeah. Is America getting better? He said, yes. You see what I'm saying? They interviewed him about UFOs, too. You see, so I mean, this fool here, but you don't realize about the Tibetan and the Indians, there's a portion of the divine mysteries that the Indians lost. Because they got so many caste systems, you Tibetans and stuff, they got so many caste systems, it's so old until they lost a certain amount of things. You see what I'm saying?
Well, he can't go home either. He's an outcast.
What I'm saying is that's the whole key. See, if you understand the whole thing with the Kabbalah and the mystery of Shekinah being in exile, then you'll understand that the return of the Dalai Lama is also trying to line him up as the Eastern Messiah. You see what I'm saying? As the Eastern Messiah. You see. So what it is they're trying to paint this world Messiah all around the doggone globe. Covering all bases. So now all of a sudden everybody concerned with the Dalai Lama. Because you got to realize American society is whatever the government wants you to damn be a champion of, you'll be a champion of. If they tell you not to save the rats, if they give a damn campaign the right way, you'll be saving rats. You know, everybody crying about a fucking mink. You see, people been wearing fur coats for thousands of years and stuff, especially if you was a damn dog up in damn Alaska. What else was you going to do? You better wear one, but I'm talking about all of a sudden everybody crying for a doggone mink with it nothing but an oversized rat anyway. And it's a form of nature in the first place because, hey, you don't realize and all, we created it. It's nothing real big, nothing but some energy that's trapped down here. It just goes back to the doggone astral plane. So what is extinct? The whole world is extinct in that particular thing. So what? Wear your mink coat, you see. But they always get on a cause and stuff, so the white man always want to feel humane. That's the way he want to keep this thing rolling and all, just in case. Just in case some things happen. Now, Edgar Cayce predicted the destruction of a large part of the globe in 1998. And also, he said that the advent of World War III by 1999 and the end of world civilization by 2000. So this is the whole 2000 mark that basically most of the Europeans are going by. Edgar Cayce also said it'll be a child that will be born called John Pineal. If you know, John is the Hebrew Elijah, and the Hebrew Elijah is the Egyptian Tahuti, and Hermes and Anubis is a part of that, so it's actually talking about an energy. John or Elijah or Anubis or Tahuti would be the mysteries of melanin, because you get the Hermetics comes from Tahuti, and Hermetics is the mystery of alchemy. And the pineal gland would actually be the producer of the actual melanin. So this is Edgar Cayce was right on this, but the people are thinking it's a literal figure. You see, it's a literal figure, and it says, but this particular person will be born, and after this new avatar will guide the world to a new millennium. So they're actually talking about the pineal gland, Lucifer, light bringer, the guiding the world to a new millennium. So this is a metaphysical quote here of what is actually going to take place in black people. You see what I'm saying? Take place in black people. Now, dealing with other metaphysical mysteries, we know now that if the heart chakra is one of the organs that produces knowledge. So we understand this particular part about the heart chakra. If your heart is not in it, you can't receive a certain amount of knowledge. I talked about this before, about the knowledge being stuck, or the consciousness being stuck in the root chakra. Well, the heart chakra, which is the main part, which was actually from this on up, you can get to the higher pineal area. If the heart chakra is not open, you can't produce knowledge. So in actuality, by a person's consciousness being stuck on the lower on the lower base root of the actual kundalini, we are actually going to have to free those particular souls when it comes, because those souls won't be able to illuminate. It would take another 1,000 years for them to incarnate with an open heart chakra, that they could get to the point to accept knowledge on the way you accept knowledge. So therefore, we're going to have to help them along by killing the physical body. So that means thousands of our people are going to die too. Now, what do you mean by that? You're saying, well, is that talking about this same elitist thing? No. We're talking about now dealing with the whole thing with Revelations, the book of Coming Forth by Day, talk about a group of advanced beings that will come in and help and assist humanity to the next evolutionary phase. Just so happen we know that those advanced beings are the ones that's been carrying on and suffering through the last 10, 12, 20, 30 years in some form of consciousness, even the time when the movements were not in the consciousness where the masses of the people would follow. We're talking about a group of people that is hanging on by the last thread. You see what I'm saying? By the last thread. So we're talking about the brothers and sisters from all walks of organizations, being metaphysical, even being some part of political organizations, like, you know, even your Nation of Islam and all that. I talked about that particular thing last night. We're talking about those particular people having some form of knowledge that will be able to assist. But it's going to be damn near what a revelation say, this particular army coming, it will be a fearful army. That's actually us. So don't worry about the people, because the people will be free. We just got to free some of them, because in actuality, none of us will have a physical body when we get through with this particular part. And we're talking about the whole chakra line up here. The whole chakra line up between the root chakra and the high chakra, that whole particular lineup we're talking about in actuality is the kundalini, or what is called the backbone of Osiris, which is also called the Djet pillar. And the Djet pillar later on is called the Jedi warrior. So in the Jedi warrior in Star Wars, which means the one who has the completion of the Djet pillar, which is the backbone of Osiris, which is the melanated ones. You see, which is the actual melanated ones. Like I had mentioned too in the book, the annotated scriptures of Star Wars, as well as the complete guide to Star Wars universe. In that particular part, they got a whole section where they talk about the Jedi Bindu. And we've said plenty of time before that the India, the black dot, is called the Bindu seed, or we call it Jedi Bindu, which in actuality is talking about the black dot. And that's what the whole thing was actually about. I also mentioned not too long ago that we need to make clear about a few people that came, and I had to explain this because a few people came up to me in lectures that went through the Afrocentric movement based on Maulana Karenga and all the rest of the so-called scholars. And they said, well, you said about this whole moralistic thing, well, and you saying that in actuality that we don't deal with moralism. Well, what about the 47 negative confessions? Isn't that a moralistic recital of what we didn't do? The mystery was, it is impossible for the physical body to be that righteous, because the physical body is such a low damn level, it can't be that righteous. It was not talking about the physical body. I didn't do this and I didn't do that and I didn't do this, or what you say, I must not do this and I shall not do this. That they took 10 from the 47 negative confessions and made 10 of those what is called the 10 commandments. It wasn't talking about that. The 47 negative confessions that they were actually talking about was what your soul didn't do. Because your soul is independent from you. It is lying dormant, so it did not do this. It did not do that. It did not do that. So the book is actually a book that is copying the actual soul and what the soul is going through other than what the human is going through. So it has nothing to do with moralism. You see what I'm saying? The book of law, the headed point say, don't worship me, I am the worshiper. Which means it goes through the process and it's the one that's doing the main suffering. Doing the main suffering and all is what it's actually talking about. Also, to recap some things, the Gnostics talk about a Gnostic seed, and that Gnostic seed has all the knowledge, and that Gnostic seed we know is melanin, and we're talking about a molecule computer chip in us that has restored everything, but some of our people are going to have to be removed from that. Going to have to be removed from that particular form. Also, there's a book called, let's see, did I put this here? There's a book called, let's see the name of this book. Let's see if I got the notes on this thing. Anyway, see, did I put the notes in here? This book is talking about how we need to dance to line up the melanin, and how the ancient people used to line up the actual melanin and go into dream time by sacred dance. So we understand now that there's a foot to get people out of dancing, so therefore the rap music, you can't really dance to it. So in the process of uplifting the rap music, they have destroyed all types of music you can actually boogie to. You could actually boogie to, and we used to go into dream time based on the actual dancing and all, because our soul never stops moving and the melanin never stops moving. So therefore, we would go into dream time or go into an altered state of consciousness by doing the dance, because we'd line up with the actual melanin, and that was the only time that we would be at one with the actual melanin. So therefore, now everything is made to keep things dormant. So therefore, we had to stop dancing. So therefore, if we had the whole black race boogieing down on Friday nights like the disco era, and like we used to party for years and years before this shit was even called a fucking disco, if this was still going on and all, we'd get a lot more white people being sick. And that's why there's been a program to shut down most black clubs that don't stay open no more than a year or so. And now I don't even think the nightclub is really a big thing in America, period, now. A big thing in America, period. Another thing, these are some things that I wanted to get on this particular tape. The name of that particular book is called The Journey of the Hero, is the name of that particular book. It talks about the dancing in the dream time. It's called The Journey of the Hero. It's an Australian company, and I'm not sure. They might have closed down, but a lot of those books you can find at the Strand in New York. The next time you're in New York, they have a lot of out-of-print books and stuff, and a lot of books that's like close-out books, and you go to the Strand downtown New York, and you can find a lot of that, which they have now expanded their entire metaphysical section. So you'll find a lot of good books down at the Strand. For those people, you know, that's a great big used bookstore that's been there for years and years, ever since the damn 20s, I believe, or even earlier than that. But I also mentioned the last time I was here, which I had the actual breakthrough, we understand there's a book called the Vodun Gnostic Workbook. It's a book that's out of print. The Magical Child in New York used to print this book. So, for what I heard, the brother Bill Lilly told me that the Magical Child is still open. Although they're not operating on a big level, they're still open. So, therefore, if they still have some of these copies of this book, you can go to New York next time you drop through and see can you get that particular book, the Vodun Gnostic Workbook by Michael Bell II. Michael Bell II is his name. Anyway, in that particular book, it said that Adalabroth, or what we call this particular subordinate deity that's ruling over the earth, is actually dying. But this book was printed in 1988. And the material was a bunch of work material. It came from the 1970s, the 1980s, and he put it all in one book by 1988. So we don't know how long this particular paper that was written on the Delilah, this subordinate deity that's keeping us in slavery, was keeping us in slavery, but it said this particular being that was keeping us in slavery was actually dying, which meant that the actual energy was dying out. But it said it was only being kept focused by certain rituals by a certain group of people. And at that particular time, we believed it was the government doing these rituals to keep this thing alive. The last time I was in Philly, based on the Million Man March, and I spoke at Miriam's place, Sister Miriam's place, I had a breakthrough because the Spirit revealed to me how the process is actually done. And so I just wanted to put this on tape, that in actuality is done through the black churches. So what happens is when you go into the church and you pray to a deity, and you think the deity is up in the sky, which in actuality you're supposed to be actually focusing on your inner self, which is the true heaven, and you pray to that particular deity, wherever you focus your energy is wherever that energy goes to. So therefore, if they tell you that the Father's in heaven, and I told you that they said that there will beyond the heavens, and so they said that the Father's in heaven and you focusing on this particular deity, in actuality, you are giving this subordinate deity juice. So what happens is when black people go in these particular churches every Sunday, and some people damn 3 and 4, 5 times a week, but mainly every Sunday, this particular energy is what kept these particular entities or these particular gods that was ruling the universe, ruling this realm here, not the universe, alive. So when you go in there and start praying to these particular deities, you give that particular energy up and it'll actually revitalize these particular deities by you giving out that type of energy. And that's why there's even greater campaign to put people back more and more into church. So you got thousands and thousands of black people finding Jesus, especially the ones that's been on crack and all that kind of stuff here. So they say, well, one brother asked me in South Carolina, he said, you said that Jesus never existed and he is the enemy. Well, why is it that people can be on crack and can go into church and get off crack? I say they didn't go into church and get off crack based on Jesus. We have a mechanism in us which is called the subconscious, and you can tap into that subconscious and you can rid yourself from not only crack but any other major disease like cancer and AIDS and anything. What has happened is by us being spiritual people, and when they go into the actual church, they actually tap into that subconscious by using the deity of Jesus, and it goes straight to the subconscious, which is an ancient way that we used to deal with statues and the Christ and the actual netters by focusing on a deity to tap into the subconscious. So they do it haphazardly, and they just attribute it to some Jesus Christ getting their ass off of crack. You see, from some Jesus Christ getting them off of crack. So therefore, these churches are actually vampire centers to revitalize this particular energy. But I think at this particular time, based on the way we see the weather is actually going to, that is not even working at this particular time. We think that the energy where they could access that melanated energy that we used to give them, they have slipped under that particular realm, so therefore they have become more and more asleep. Now, I think there's a book that talks about it, which is a Cthulhu book, which you know was written by H.P. Lovecraft, which was the writer that wrote a lot of the Cthulhu mythos in the 1920s and the 1930s. Well, there's a book that actually talks about how the great old ones used to rule, which is us. They used to rule where man lives now. It says that the great old ones used to rule where man lives now. But it also says, it also goes in to say that the actual God, and I mentioned this last night, but the cycles, they say the stars had to be right before the great Cthulhu or we rise up again. Well, when the stars became right, that meant that in actuality, that was a cycle or a conjunction or a period of time when the actual deities that was ruling, their energy would burn out and they would actually go to sleep. And that would actually, by them becoming weak, that energy becoming weak, it would no longer be able to sustain the physical realm that would actually keep us down. This is also a reason why black people are going crazy now. This is a reason why black people are the worst people you meet now. You see what I'm saying? And this is true. Let's be frank about this shit. And the crack ain't made you madder than a nigga the last couple of months. That is because black people no longer have control over their body and their actions because the energy in us is higher than the physical body, than the actual physical body. And as I said in previous lectures, that energy is actually now rejecting the physical body. So the main thing in lining up this particular energy is not to focus on things so much as physical, but on the other hand is to become more and more like children. Become more and more innocent and become unorthodox in your particular living. Whereas the unorthodox in your particular living to the point whereas you just basically look like a damn lazy bum or whatever. But in actuality, you don't necessarily have to be lazy, but just live like you do in high school. And always live one day at a time. And get out of the structured life, which actually is the thing that shuts down the actual melanin in the first place. And try to identify with the 12 man or somebody like that that is on such a primitive level that you think, which is actually primal level, that he doesn't have the newer structures that confine him. So this is how you line up this particular energy. At this particular time. As we also said, recapping, that anytime you take time, and this is going and piggybacking on what I just said, anytime you set a particular goal in front of you, you are a particular goal a couple of months or a couple of years down the line, you have now eliminated that space of time in which you pointed out, or you aim for that goal. The time that you would spend getting to that particular goal, you have now eliminated that particular time. In actuality, what you have actually done is you have made an extension and made time go on, because we the one that keep the actual time going on by all our goals and stuff in the future. If you gods or higher beings, whatever you want is whatever you get. So therefore, we should not live but one day at a time on any level. And don't use your children as an excuse, because that's the main thing which actually destroys us, because especially most people, male and female, if the male is in the home but female if it's not, is that once you have a baby, 99% of the time, you basically give your future up for that child. Everything that you once used to have reserved for yourself is now transferred to that child. You see what I'm saying? And that child, that means you actually throw away your life, because there's no guarantee what a motherfucker might turn out to be when they get 18. You know, you got some people that's the greatest disciplinarians. They raised the children. I know some people that raised their children, gave them everything. They did everything what it was, but the child still turned out being an asshole in and out of prison. So that lets you know right then that in actuality, just for you just basically teaching a person verbally or mentally is probably the only thing you need to do. But as far as a social, economical structure, it doesn't really necessarily mean that. We understand that we are the race of people that defy those odds, that you don't necessarily need an economical structure to rise up. But that's neither here nor there, because we understand that we don't want a world, if this world survives, we don't want a world where our children would be in the damn future, because it'll be all fucked up. And that's what, if you go back and look at JFK, that's what he was trying to tell his wife. She was like, you changed, you changed. He said, of course I've changed. I got knowledge and my eyes have opened. It's not about our 2 cars. It's not about what these children eat and all that type of stuff, saying, hell, we might not even have a world for them to go to. So this is the concept on what we talk about by eliminating personal responsibility. That's the main thing with the white man tell you, take personal responsibility. We're saying eliminate that personal responsibility, and the only responsibility you need is the knowledge to be your main agenda. The knowledge to be your main agenda. So what does this mean? Does this mean you walk out in the street and don't do anything and just lay on the corner? No, it just means be in the world but not of the world, and you can function on a day-to-day basis, but that is not the main priority. So you can go to work, you can even go sit in on board meetings, and you can do the same damn thing agenda to keep your damn finances going, but you're not necessarily into it. You're just staying on top of the water and doing just enough to stay on top of the water, but not doing like black people from age-old times have done, where we have become the actual job. So we got a job. Working 7-Eleven. Can I get a little more mayonnaise? And they pitch a damn bitch over. Is the one that's got the most menial job, that raised more hell about the white charge of the goddamn butter. I'm in charge of this butter. I'm in charge of this butter. You see what I'm saying? So therefore, we have to get rid of this personal responsibility like by being in the world but not of the world, for the simple doggone fact that we have a certain condition that we have become our jobs and our occupation and our status over the future, from the hee-haws to the bourgeois. And this is a sickness that has actually become our ass. We also covered that there's 3 types of race of people on the earth. One is called the Hyalic, one is called the Psychic, and one is called the Gnostic. The word Hyal comes from the word hail, and the word hell comes from the word hail, which means physical body and physical earth. The word Hyalic means a person that just has a physical soul or a physical body and energy that operates it. The word Psychic is black people who have the physical and the spiritual mechanisms, but they're dead. And then you have the word Gnostic, which is gnosis or genes of Isis, which is a person that knows the consciousness level that they're actually on, and that's the immortal man. But the other one is immortal, but he's still a dead man. So right now, the immortal people are the only ones that's going to have to take the field, and we're going to actually have to deal or have to actually use what we have been given to free the rest of the people. And so it's something like this. Somebody said, well, I still can't see how all the other black people, how this is going to work when all the other black people don't get the particular knowledge. It somewhat goes like this. It's like the same I am because we are. You might be a child 10 years old and might not pay bills in the house, might not have transportation, but because your parents have the means to pay the bills and have the means to have the transportation and have the means to be economically structured, you have the same means. So that has to deal with where each one of us, we represent 1,000 people, or we represent 1 million people for each one of us in this room. They don't have to have the knowledge because you have the knowledge for them. So in actuality, we are slaves and servants of the actual people. And they don't have to have the knowledge because you represent 1 million people. So that's how important we are. Just in everyday case, when you say, am I worthless? Then you should think in your mind that for the mere fact that you got knowledge, you are very special and precious as gold because you are carrying the knowledge so your other people don't have to worry in the insanity that they are actually in.